welcome to Fresh Perspectives. My name is Gail, and I'm happy to say that my guest today is someone very interesting. She's a medium. She does energy healing with tuning forks. She is a spiritual life coach, and she is wrote a book that's going to be published soon. Her name, you've seen her before, probably at least once a year on Fresh Perspectives. Her name is Colleen Vanderzyden. Thank you for coming on
today.
Thanks
for having me again. It's so nice to be back.
Yeah, it's nice for you to be back. We haven't gotten to see you in over a year now.
Time flies.
And you managed to come through the pandemic and stayed healthy.
Yes.
And you have one more dose of your vaccine to get still, and you're hoping not to have too many side effects.
Wouldn't that be something? I'm planning to not have any, so I'm pretty sure I can control that. Sure.
Yeah, really. So anyway, it's always a really interesting conversation when you come on. And the sweater she's wearing today is not the same one on the intros. It's a different red one.
Red's my favorite color. So.
Is it really? Yeah, I guess you could say purple is mine. So anyways, we decided we would talk about synchronicity today. And Colleen, would you tell the viewing audience what synchronicity is? It's like what most people consider a coincidence,
yes.
Except there is no such thing as a coincidence. So I will let you attempt to describe it.
It is interesting to try to describe synchronicity, but it is like a coincidence because something happens and we think, oh, isn't that interesting? You know, I thought of that, and then there that person was.
Yeah, and people say it's a coincidence, but you know, those two things happen together. But in the grand scheme of things,
yes, and synchronicity, it's an interesting topic, really it is, because you would think we wouldn't have that much to say about it, but it leads into so many other topics as well. You know, so synchronicity, it's actually implying that there is a perfect order to life in a way, that something happens and it's supposed to be happening, or maybe it's opening your intuition up, or leading you to something bigger than you could imagine could happen. And it's interesting once people recognize that coincidences are not random and synchronicities are in order, then once you see that, you start to find them. They're all over the place. They're just all over the place.
They are. You know, I'm not sure what it is, but it seems like I experience it. And the older I get, the more I experience it. And it seems like, well, has it just increased since I've gotten older, or did I just not notice before?
That's probably more the case. You probably just didn't notice, you know. And the more aware you become of life and how life works, I think we just start to notice them, especially as we get older. When we're younger, we're busy, you know, we're distracted. We're not paying attention to what's happening around us. We're so externally focused on our jobs and kids and all that stuff. And now you get a little bit older, you have a little bit more time to kind of reflect and go, oh, curious. So.
Yeah. Well, did you want to tell the story about how you eventually met me?
Yeah, you know, it is interesting. And it's just a very simple example of a synchronicity because I was joining the Methodist Church, which I know some of you will find very odd, but that was a long time ago. And so I was joining the Methodist Church, and it was because my husband at the time was actually the choir director and was a Methodist. So I was going to join the church, and so one of the older ladies in the church, I became friends with her. She was probably 70, 80 years old at the time.
Who happened to be one of my teachers when I was in high school.
Interesting.
she was the high school art teacher of mine.
Okay.
So
yeah, we just had a connection. It was great. So she became my sponsor, one of my sponsors. I had to have two because they said I needed an extra one. And I don't know
that
what
sounds
that
a bit
meant.
weird.
But anyway, so and then through her, of course, I eventually met her son, and then we all ended up reconnecting at Lilydale. Everybody, we all ended up over there eventually, and then her son asked me to speak for the Vegetarian Society, and I talked about sound healing, I remember. And so
With tuning forks.
With tuning forks, and then I met you there, and then a few years later, here we are.
Yes. So then I got the idea. Now, I had one of your business cards that you'd pass them out, I think was what it was. And I keep all of these business cards. I have a ring binder notebook. You can get these plastic-like pages to put in a ring binder that have all of the little individual spaces that are just the right size for business cards. So I have that card still in there. So whenever I want to ask you to be on Fresh Perspectives, I just get out my ring binder notebook. Oh, I just remembered, I was in such a hurry when I left the house. I was going to bring that deck of cards that you gave me the first time you were on. Remember that?
Yeah.
I thought, maybe we could draw a few of those today, but now I've gone and left it home.
That's okay, we'll do it another
So that
time.
must mean we don't need them if I've left them home. So, anyways, yeah, it was pretty interesting. So then I called you up, and that's how you got to be somebody who came on Fresh Perspectives from time to time. But it's kind of a synchronistic experience how I got this television program.
Right?
Yeah, it was. Well, somebody, because I run the Chautauqua County Vegetarian Society with a friend of mine, and my husband helps out a lot too. A man named Reed Powers, who had a program here on Fresh Perspectives, he passed away somewhere between the time he interviewed me and the time I had a TV show here. But he had asked me to come on to talk about vegetarianism. And I said, okay. And I couldn't get my partner, my friend that does this with me, the other coordinator, I couldn't talk her into it. She's this is a scary kind of experience for her. So she didn't come on. But anyway, we did the interview. And so anyways, after my mother passed away, and my husband and I ran into somebody my husband knew somewhere one day, and he introduced us. And the guy said, I saw you when you were interviewed on television that one time. You did a really good job of being interviewed. You should have your own TV talk show. Well, we just happen to be friends with somebody who does some volunteer work here at the studio. His name is Devin Taylor, actually. And he's the Mayville Village historian and the historian for the township of Chautauqua. But anyway, I just happened to mention it to him, just thinking he'd get a laugh at the idea of me having a TV show. But he didn't. Instead, he said, I can arrange that for you if you want me to.
Nice.
So a couple of months later, I had my first episode. So anyway, that was kind of a synchronistic experience too. But anyway, here we are sitting here at the table together, and I had connections with people that you had connections with, and
yeah, something I talk about in my book is about the perfection of our life labyrinth, and I like to use the analogy of a labyrinth because lots of times people think a labyrinth is like a maze where you go and you get stuck at dead ends and things like that.
Oh yeah.
But a labyrinth, the path always leads to the center, and but it twists and turns, and you have these unexpected twists and turns, and life is so much like that.
Oh, it is. It is.
Where you're on your path, you're doing something, and then it twists, it turns, and you think you're going backwards, you think you're going the wrong way, you think you're stuck, and all that stuff. But the order of the labyrinth always takes you to your center, just like the perfection of the life path always takes you where you need to go. And if people actually looked back on their lives, did like a little life review, they'd be able to see those moments where one choice led to another, which led to another, which led to another. And there's just a perfect order in it. And if people embrace that idea, just even a little bit, they would actually, instead of beating themselves up over the mistakes they made in the past, or put that in quotes, mistakes, or the problems they're having now, they might recognize, you know what, it's all going to be fine because I'm going exactly where I'm supposed to be. Their lives would be so much more peaceful. They would be so much happier.
You know?
And so all these things, everything, even the mistakes are synchronistic.
Yeah, you know, yeah, there have been a lot of times when I thought, geez, I wish I hadn't done that, you know, and that was a big mistake. I mean, you don't realize that you're about to make a mistake when you do it, but then you wind up with consequences, but then you learn things from it, at least, you know.
Yeah, out of everything is a learning opportunity about yourself.
Yeah.
You know, everything. And the mistakes are the best learning opportunities, that and relationships. There's a lot of learning within those things. So it's amazing to watch. I have an interesting story I can tell you about a synchronicity that I did not tell you yet because I wanted to save it.
Good.
And it's a good one.
Oh, good.
So years ago, probably, gosh, I don't even know, 4 or 5 years ago, I came across, I follow a certain teacher, a mediumship teacher, and I saw she was having a certain class in Virginia, and I thought, with another couple of people who are great mediumship teachers, and I'm like, I'm going to go to Virginia and take this class. And it was one of those impulsive decisions. I'm going to go do this. So I ended up going to this, and as I was in the bookstore, I have a lot of books on spirituality, mediumship, healing, self-growth, so I don't buy many books anymore because it seems like I've read everything. But I found this awesome book there called The Quickening, Leaping Ahead on Your Spiritual Journey. And
Leaping Ahead?
Yep, Leaping Ahead on Your Spiritual Journey, The Quickening. And I started the book while I was at this workshop. And it was such a great book with the perspectives on different ways we can get ahead in our lives spiritually, talking about things like past life regression and dealing with your personal traumas and different techniques therapists can use to help you with traumas. And he talked about a spiritual activation where you can increase your spiritual ability. So I finished this book so quickly, and I tried to find the author. And
did you?
Yeah, I tried to find him, and I found his website, and it needed to be updated. So I found him on Facebook and sent him a message, but we weren't friends, of course, so it took him a while to find the message. So, you know, a little bit later, several months went by, and he responded, and I just wanted to know if he had any workshops I could go to, because I really loved the book. And there wasn't any workshop that was going to work for me, and so we became friends on Facebook.
Oh, okay.
And, you know, so that was kind of cool, you know. Couple years go by, and last year we started chatting through Facebook, and we started chatting more and more and more, and now we're engaged. I saved it for your show to tell you. We actually got engaged. Can you believe this?
So wow, this person whose book you admired so much, now you're engaged to him.
Yes.
Wow.
And all because I impulsively decided to go to this workshop where I found his book, reached out to him, he reached back, and then eventually we just started chatting about life in general. And this all happened last year during COVID times.
Oh, wow.
So we were Zooming.
Oh, okay.
You know? Thank God when we met each other in person physically, it was a good connection. But we anticipated it would be, just because, you know, that's really the best way to get to know somebody, right? So I look back at that and I think, wow, talk about synchronistic. Like, how did that even happen? I could not have planned it. And that's the thing. Sometimes people think, well, when I want to develop my intuition, so I'm going to work on it and make it happen so more synchronistic things happen. Doesn't work that way. It's all about unfolding and letting the life unfold right in front of you, and trusting that the perfection in the path is there. Isn't that amazing?
Yes, yes, it is. Okay, show the viewing audience your ring.
I'll go like this. You see it from here? And actually, this is another one. He got me 2 engagement rings.
Oh, really?
Because he didn't know which
is
one
that a sapphire?
Yeah, with diamonds. And so then he gave me this one too. So I have 2. So I'm double engaged.
What month is your birthday in?
October.
October.
Yeah, that doesn't go, but I just like sapphires.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I'm a September person, so sapphire is my birthstone.
Yeah, and it's interesting because we do the same things but in different ways. So,
you and him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he's well aware of what I do, and we're both spiritually inclined and teaching the same things in different ways, because he literally is a therapist. You know, and his book is just amazing, you know.
Is he going to move here then?
We're going to go back and forth. So he's actually coming up in a couple of weeks again, and I just got back from Texas. He lives in Texas.
A couple of weeks. How long is he going to be here?
Through the summer, into the fall.
Do you think that he might like to be on Fresh Perspectives?
You would love talking to him. His name is Greg Unterberger.
Greg Unterberger.
Unterberger, and his book is called The Quickening, and it's, I mean, like I said, it's amazing. He would love to be on your show. I will tell him.
Yeah,
and say this is a great opportunity.
Okay.
He does workshops all over the country, and speaks a lot. You know,
good,
I mean,
good.
under normal circumstances.
Under normal circumstances.
Now he's zooming. You know. But, yeah.
Well, it's pretty safe here at the studio. None of us, actually, we've been lucky. Well, I should say we've been, what would be the right word for it? Synchronistically, nobody who works here regularly at the studio has had it, and we've all been vaccinated.
Yeah.
So
yeah, he's all done with his vaccinations and stuff.
Yeah, that's good.
Getting back to normal.
So, so that is really exciting. Now, are you going to have a wedding? Am I going to be invited?
You want to come? Yeah. I don't know when, just because my daughter's actually getting married next year.
Oh, is she really?
So it's kind of like, okay, we don't want, you know, she's going to have a very small wedding, but a big party a couple months later. So we don't want to interfere with her stuff.
Oh, okay.
So,
okay.
Yeah, so at some point, you know. So.
Well, you know, this is kind of a cute synchronistic experience. I had this girl hired. She was helping me take care of my mother. After my mother between the time my mother had a stroke and the time she died. And I remember my mother's back had gone out, and she needed a chiropractic adjustment. So I remember calling the chiropractor and asked him if he still did, you know, house calls, and he goes, well, not too much anymore. And I said, well, I'll explain this to you. I said, she's really hard. It's for my mother, not for me. And it's so hard to take her anyplace. It's so hard to get her in and out of the car that, you know, if you would come over here and do the adjustment at her apartment, we would really appreciate it. So he agreed. This was on a Friday that I was talking to him. And he said Saturdays he sees patients in his office in the morning. And he said, well, when I get through tomorrow, I'll come over. And well, when he got there that day, I was there, and the girl that was helping me was there. And he came in to her apartment, and he said it wasn't more than 5 minutes after you called when the man that lives in the apartment, the very next one to her, called because he needed an adjustment. And so he wound up telling the guy, well, I'll take care of you at your apartment because I have to go over there anyway to the apartment building that you live in. So he comes in and he's saying all this stuff in front of this girl. It was probably the first time in her life she's ever met anybody who is like me, you know. And it kind of blew her mind, you know. And I remember her at one of our vegetarian society dinners when she went with us. I remember her telling somebody else that was there that evening. She goes, Gail gets really scary sometimes, you know. You would have thought, you know, you would have thought somebody had performed some magic or something, you know.
You know, it's funny now. I keep talking about on my Lilydale radio show, which is on Facebook Live as well. You know, right now they've all turned into mini workshops about everything, but I've been talking about the consciousness shift and how people are waking up to a different way of looking at things, and all of us who were abnormal are becoming more normal.
Yeah, I know. I remember starting to have psychic experiences when I was a teenager. That was when I was first noticing maybe I already had them, I don't know, but I remember some really unusual things. Like I would have a dream and it would come true, and
that's another coincidence.
Yeah. I remember one time, it was, the Easter weekend holiday, and well, I was home because it was like Good Friday, we were off. I think I was probably 15 years old maybe, and I was home. Now I was up and around and awake, so I know this wasn't a dream, And I remember suddenly I was in church, and the little boy whose job it was to light the candles at the beginning of the service, in this experience, basically I time traveled is what happened. And I saw this, I saw him faint. I could actually hear the thud. And some men came and picked him up and carried him out of the room. Well, okay, and then all of a sudden I popped back into the present. And wouldn't you know what, that actually happened at the sunrise service that Sunday. Well, it scared me both times because I didn't know having experiences like that were actually normal. And it was like, well, when I first had the experience on Friday, it scared me. And then when it actually happened in church, it scared me. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what is happening to me, that this actually happened. It was the craziest thing. So it was like just about my first psychic experience, but it was probably just about the most dramatic one. I don't know. It was pretty crazy.
It's interesting when those things happen, when we have the psychic moments, and really all that is, so many people think it's a special gift or whatever, but everybody has them, and they come through in the synchronicities and things like that. But all that really is we're tapping into the flow of the energy of the universe, basically. And we do, it's like our soul does it every now and then by itself.
Right.
It just does it.
And that was what was so scary about it the first time, because I don't know what's going on here. This is really weird,
Yeah, and people will get scared about that sometimes. I can't tell you how many times I've had clients say to me, oh yeah, this happened a long time ago, and it really freaked me out. And, of course, most of us were brought up in a more typical household where, we didn't talk about universal energy or, psychic,
really.
or and if you did, you were labeled a witch, which was a bad thing back then, and, all of this. And now, they have those experiences, so it kind of puts up a wall for them to connect in with that energy.
Oh.
And because it freaks them out, it scares them, so it puts up a wall. And then what happens is they're not experiencing life as fully as they could be. So I always tell people, what you feel like when you're in the zone? When everything is going great, it feels like life is easy. The problems, even if you have a problem, you can handle it. That's when you're in the flow of the universal energy. And it's the same thing. So if you spend more time creating that feeling, you're actually kind of going about it backwards a little bit. Instead of head on, I want to create more synchronistic experiences, I want to be more psychic, I want to have more intuition. Just getting back to being you, when you feel most like you, that creates that connection to the universal flow. Then the synchronicities will happen even more. And then it becomes a more natural occurrence. And then you kind of start going, oh, that happened, that was really cool instead. But to get people to recognize that their past experiences, although they freaked them out, now you can look back on it and you realize, say, oh, I get it.
It was a gift,
Yes.
I mean, it was special.
Yeah, and how many times have people said, I had this feeling that I knew so-and-so was going to die. I just knew it ahead of time. And, they would look at it, and some people would get all freaked out about that too, and other times they'd be, let's just see what happens. And then, of course, it happens, and then they wonder. And then, of course, the next question is what do you do with it? Like, what was the point of you getting that message that this kid was going to pass out? Sometimes people say, if you can't do anything about it, why would you get the message? But
Yeah.
the message would be more personal to you,
Uh-huh.
that you are connected and that you do have this ability to look to the future in your dreams, or that you maybe reminding you are connected. And of course now you can see that and you know
Right,
that.
right.
You know?
Yeah, now if I have an experience, it doesn't scare me.
Yeah.
Instead, it kind of puts me on a natural high where I feel really happy and everything.
Well, it's fun, right?
Yeah.
And you know,
Yeah.
we want to be happy as much as possible.
Right,
And when
right.
we're feeling like ourselves and when we're in that flow, that's when we are going to be the happiest, is when we're in the flow. And that's the flow of us being us in that natural state. It's so cool. And, you know, if people who have experienced that, you know, for some of my clients, I would say, just look back, look at it from a different angle. Look at it from a different angle instead of it freaking you out. And, you know, of course, we've got the ultra-conservative religions that would say, what I'm saying is basically the devil. And, you know, I must be possessed or things like that. You know, that's all based on the Old Testament, very fear-based. That's not my understanding of what God and the universal energy is. So for people who are brought up with that, it's hard for them to break free from the rules, if you will. But I know there are a lot of people who are out there thinking, this doesn't feel right to me. And I always tell them, go with your gut, whatever feels right, that's for you. And that will help them just open their minds up a little bit. So if there's people out here listening now who are struggling with some of that, just consider that there's more to it than what you think.
Yes, there definitely is. It leads to, you know, being open, you know, leads to such interesting experiences. Like just having this television program, you know, it was just one of those times where everything seemed to be falling into place. Like, I have this friend, and she lives at the Chautauqua Institution, and I remember when she realized that her mother was, you know, getting to close to the end of her life. She isn't somebody who'd always lived around here, and she said something to me one day about, well, I'd like to use that Frey Funeral Home in Mayville, but I don't know those people. Well, so I put her mind at ease right away. I said, well, actually, I went to school with the undertaker when I was a kid, I said, and we've always gone there, you know, with our family members. We always use that funeral home. So she felt a lot better then, you know, and it turned out they wound up really liking the undertaker and everything. And then, well, everything was just falling into place that day. She had called and left a message for the guy that is the caretaker of the Chautauqua Cemetery. And let's see, I was doing some chores for her at her house that particular day, and she went over to see her mother at the nursing home. And the guy called back while she was gone, so I gave him her cell phone number. And it turned out that he just happened to call her at her cell phone number just as she was getting in her car at the nursing home to get ready to come back home. And then he came over when she got back. He came over to her house, and they worked out all of the details about buying the grave site and all of that. And you know, it was just everything fell into place with those funeral arrangements and things. So
yeah, you know, so many of us, we try to plan everything out. You know, we look to the end, and then we've got to, because of our schooling, we've got to figure out every step.
We have to figure out all of the steps.
Yeah,
you know,
and that's when we don't get things done, is because we're trying to figure out all the steps. And if people just took one step and then let the next one unfold, those synchronistic moments appear. It really is amazing. It's amazing. Can you imagine, like, if you lived your life, and I know people do this, where you have your goals, but you just let them be, and then you just wait and see how you get there. And you just take that one step, and then it's like, oh, now I'm over here, now I'm over here. And you can always backtrack if it looks like you've gone down a dead end, you know? So it's really interesting. It's a whole new way of living, because we're used to controlling and analyzing and figuring out the steps. A whole new way of just being open and letting it unfold. Whoa, that's kind of crazy.
Well, you know, at one point when I was 51 years old, 20 years ago, I had decided I wanted to try making gemstone bead jewelry and selling it at arts and craft shows. So, I decided, I started doing it. I learned how to make things and so forth. And I was doing like about a half a dozen shows a year. And it really didn't turn out to be very lucrative for me. And after the 2008, what did they call that in 2008? Oh, you know, the economy kind of, you know,
like a
the
crash.
stock market.
Depression?
Depression. He said depression. That was in the 1930s.
It's probably a big recession, right?
Yeah, but anyway, so anyway, I kind of got away from doing it, and in a way you could say maybe it was kind of a waste of time. However, the people who did buy things from me were very happy with them, and I made some of the best friends I have today were other vendors that I met while I was doing it.
Right, and it was all because you had that thought in your head, and then you followed it.
Yes, and now
Look what happened.
now I have these friends for life. You know, you know,
because of that random
these
thought.
wonderful people. It was a lot of work to acquire those friends, but it was worth it. You know.
Yeah, if people followed those intuitive thoughts, and well, of course, sometimes we can't label them intuitive thoughts. It's like what passed in my head. It's, you know, just that little thought, and you think, oh, you know, I think I'd like to take painting classes. You know, like I've always wanted to do watercolor painting. For years, I wanted to do watercolor painting. Couldn't find a teacher. Searched everything. Couldn't find anything. Happened to mention it again, and then somebody said the Methodist Church in Fredonia did it as an outreach program, and it was free.
The Methodist Church in Fredonia.
Free watercolor painting class.
It didn't happen to be that art teacher of mine that was teaching it, was
Ron
it?
Lafferty?
No.
Okay, she's the one that does the watercolor. They have a whole arts program there. Of course, it's been off for a little bit of time now. But so I started taking lessons with her, and it was amazing, all because I just had this feeling I wanted to do this, and then somebody just happened to mention they were doing it there, and I checked into it, and it was starting in a week or two, and I even got in before like one of the classes right away, so I didn't have to wait.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
You know, you just have to follow those little thoughts sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I was just supposed to meet certain people. And I'm sure there are people out there to this day that are wearing things that I made.
Isn't that fun?
Yeah.
How exciting is that, you know?
Yeah, really, really. So,
yeah, that's fun. And to see the perfect order in it again. It's
I know.
always there.
I know.
And then think about the adventures that are yet to come that you don't even know you're going to be doing.
Oh, yeah.
You don't even know what's going to be happening, but how much fun is that? And people get so upset about uncertainty. You know, I don't know what's going to happen. The unknown is so scary. But what if, you know, I always use this analogy, somebody gives you a present, you know, it's all wrapped up. You don't look at it and go, oh no, what's in here? I hope this isn't something really bad. I bet it's something really bad. I'm going to push it over here and I'm going to ignore it and pretend it's not there. And because that's what we do when we have our problems or uncertain. We push it over here. We catastrophize it and everything. But instead, for a present, you know, usually we're pretty excited, unless you're getting it from somebody you know is a practical joker or something that's
or
trying to
somebody
scare
who
you.
has bad taste.
Yeah, you know, well, even that, right? So, but if we started to look at our uncertainty along that line instead of, oh no, what's that? And getting all worried and ignoring and pushing it away and getting worked up over it, and we could kind of switch it to, somebody's given you something that's really special because you don't know what's in there. What if it's the best thing ever? And same thing with whatever's happening in your life. Even the worst stuff that happens to us leads to something better. Even the worst. And people go, oh, but so-and-so died. I'm like, I know. We've all been there. After my brother died, and he was young. He just turned 15.
You lost a brother.
Yeah, my brother. After my brother died,
I lost a brother also,
16.
but he lived to be 55.
Yeah, mine was very young. After he died, we were in, and of course that's horrible, right? Because people always say that to me, but so-and-so died and nothing good will ever come out of this. It's like, everybody dies. We have to just accept that fact. It's horrible. I know it's sad and all of that. But in the funeral for my brother, we heard footsteps walk up the side of the church roof, very steep church roof, and down the other. There was no way anybody could have been walking up there.
Because it was so steep.
So steep. And that happened to be at the exact same moment the minister said, my brother put his hand in the hand of God and walked with him. And we heard this walking on, we all went like this.
Yeah.
So out of that comes, of course, a strengthening in my spiritual connection, knowing, I knew already, but it's good to have those knowings. I knew he was really there, right, on the other side. And so even with the passing of somebody, there's good that will come out of it, And I, as a medium, I talk to people all the time, obviously, who have lost people.
Oh, yeah.
And varying degrees of their resolution in the grief. But some people have really moved forward, even with traumatic, horrible losses, and can look back with the gratitude for the time they had, but also have strengthened something within themselves as well. So I don't know why I had to say that. My guess would be somebody out there is probably going, but I've lost so-and-so and there's nothing good, but there is.
I'm glad you mentioned it to me because that's something that we have in common, although my brother lived to be 55. That's something that both of us, the two of us, have in common, that we've both lost a brother. Was he sick?
Yeah, he ended up with cancer, testicular cancer, at 15 and died like 6 months later.
Really? At that young of an age?
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah, it was bad.
Yeah, my brother had leukemia.
Oh, man.
So he had to live he had to be sick for the last 8 months of his life. So
that's tough. It really is tough,
Yeah.
It's hard, especially when we're dealing with people struggling and we want to help, but there's really not much we can do except be there, which is actually the most important thing anyway. But we're doers. Society is doers.
Yeah, well, my plan is to be doing well enough until the last moment that I don't have to have somebody else take care of me. That's what I'm working towards.
Yes. Yep.
That I can be independent until the end.
A nice quick passing.
Yeah, a nice, peaceful,
I'm
just
here, I'm there.
All of a sudden I'll go to sleep and never wake up again, so.
Right. All in good timing.
Yeah.
I know, yeah, see, we digressed from synchronicities to passings, but...
Yeah, we, sorry about that, those of you in the viewing audience.
Well,
but,
there's always a reason.
One topic leads to another.
My theory, too, is, when I'm doing my radio shows and stuff, and the Facebook Lives, and I can see the comments and stuff, I will be talking about something, and all of a sudden, I'm on a different topic. And I'll say, I know somebody out there just said this to themselves. So let me talk about this for a minute, because I can tell, I'll say something, and it's like I hear in my head
what their
resistance is.
What they're thinking because of what you said.
Yeah, and no, that can't be true. And I'll go, yes, it can be true. Let me tell you why. Or just open it up and look at it this way. So it's likely somebody is going to be watching at one point and will do exactly that. And so it makes sense. It's all in order.
Well, it's funny that you happen to mention that, because sometimes I'll have this unexplained urge to say something to somebody who I happen to be in the presence of at the moment. And it's like I can't control myself. I have to tell them, it's some tidbit of information or something that I know. And so I'll say it to the person. And the next thing I know, they'll be looking at me really funny with a really surprised expression on their face. it'll turn out it was the answer to a question they were just getting ready to ask me, and I went and answered the question before they had the chance to ask it. And before I say it, I have no idea why I want to say this to this person. You know, it just comes out of me. And it's like, you know, it's just an answer to their question.
You're in the flow.
They ask it, you know, it's...
Yeah.
And that's why I get that urge to say whatever it is at the time. But the expressions on their faces are priceless.
Well, and the thing is, what's really good and important with that, because I know other people have had those urges, and what do? We talk ourselves out of them.
Talk themselves out of saying it?
We don't want to say it. So, you know, maybe we're driving, and I heard the story from somebody, actually a couple similar with other people. We're driving along, and we see somebody on the side of the road who's selling flowers or something, and we stop to buy a flower. Like, why are we buying this flower? You know, then we continue our drive, and we go to another store, and we get out of the store, and we see this person standing there, and we think, I'm going to give them that flower. We don't know them, right? So we just have this moment. We give them the flower. It turns out, for whatever reason, that was what they needed. Maybe that was their birthday, and whoever usually gave them a flower isn't there anymore.
Oh.
So you, not talking yourself out of it, you just went with it and said it, because lots of times we do blurt things out, and that's when we're in that intuitive synchronistic flow again. And once we get in that flow, we are connected to everybody. So we're picking up on what other people need. So when we get those intuitive, those weird nudges, and we start to talk ourselves out of them, that's the time to stop talking ourselves out of it. Tell ourselves to stop talking and just go do whatever it is, you know, because you don't know how important something like that can be.
I know, and it's pretty amazing, really.
It really is. It's quite stunning.
Yeah.
And people just don't understand how powerful they are. And how much of a positive effect they can even have on others just by doing something like that.
Yeah, I've noticed over the years, I didn't know it when I was a kid. There were certain kids that used to pick on me and be mean to me all the time when I was a kid, you know, kind of bullying and stuff like that. And, you know, I never, you know, it's too bad, you know, because they didn't experience the joy of being nicer. Yeah. But, you know, as the years have gone by, I've realized that being nice to somebody feels good. You're actually doing it for yourself as much as the other person, because, you know, I don't know why it feels so good. You know, it just does.
You know, part of it is the theory that we are all connected, you know, and many people don't recognize that, as you can see by the divisive behaviors and attitudes that we're watching now. You know, the people putting other people down for whatever reasons, and there's so many reasons that people are like this, which we won't go into. But what they're not recognizing is that the person in front of you is a part of you, you know, that we are all connected. And treating somebody else like that, judging them, criticizing them, trying to suppress them, is really coming back at yourself. So what that means is they probably do the same to themselves, but they've probably also felt judged and suppressed, and their way of dealing with it is really backwards. Because it's projecting it out on somebody else. And they're not recognizing that how they're treating somebody else is themselves as well.
Well, actually, I've read a lot of things that were written by psychologists and like that, and had conversations with mental health people and so forth. And well, actually, they say like with teenagers, you know, they bully other people as a way to try to make themselves feel better about themselves. It has to do with how they feel about themselves. I don't think it helps them.
They feel threatened in some way. They feel threatened. You know, it's kind of it's the idea of, if I put you down first, then you don't have time to put me down. You know, so I'm going to deflect my own insecurity.
Yeah, sort of have some control over you.
It's really misguided, and obviously they're quite unaware that they're doing this. It's too bad.
Yeah.
You know.
So, so anyway, that's what That's what the mental health experts say. So
Yeah, it does help.
yeah.
You know, they talk about the random acts of kindness.
Oh, I know.
You know,
I
if you do
know.
something like that, especially if you can keep it anonymous,
Oh,
because we
yeah.
don't need to have feedback. Oh, you're so wonderful. You know, you're so wonderful. It's nice to hear you've made a difference in somebody's life, but it's not the end all.
No,
You know, and
no.
just to help somebody is, you know, I played a little Secret Santa with a couple of kids that I know didn't have a whole lot of money. So I literally at 12:30 in Christmas morning, I'm sneaking to their house.
At 12:30?
In the morning, sneaking to their house in the snow to drop off a little present because I just really wanted to do that. It would be fun. Nobody knew I did it, and it was so much fun to
Well,
do.
where did you leave it so it didn't?
On their porch, kind of in the corner.
Oh, kind of under
There was
a
a
roof
porch,
so
yeah.
it wouldn't
The
get
roof.
wet or anything.
Yeah, I just had it off in the corner.
Yeah,
Just
I
for
just
fun.
wondered how you were going to do that, especially if their door was locked.
Well,
so you
yeah,
couldn't
I put it on the
inside
porch.
the
and
door.
I had to wait till their lights were off. That was the thing. I kept going over and looking. Lights were on. Could come back. So, it was tricky, but you know, something like that, and it just gave me so much joy. You know, and nobody would ever know it was me that did that. You know, and unexpected. You know.
You never heard anything about
Nope.
it. Or
And I didn't even
anything.
ask when I saw them the next time or anything.
Well, I guess that's where the idea of Santa Claus came from. There actually was a person named Nicholas or something
Right.
like that. Was it Germany?
No, I don't know my
He
history.
used to, you know, he used to help people, like if there was a daughter in a home or something like that, and her family couldn't afford a dowry. You know, so she could get married because you had to have stuff like that, you know, back in those days. So he would sneak money into their homes and stuff like that on Christmas Eve, and you know, just so that they could have a happy, fulfilling life, apparently.
Yeah.
So
And think about that, because then going back to the synchronicity thing. So how many times would, you know, that person, Saint Nick there, do something, and then those people are like, oh my God, I really needed this. I can't believe this happened. You know, and everything we do has a ripple effect and comes back to us all the time.
Well, there have been some times in my life when I just didn't have any money, but somehow I always had everything that I needed.
One of my phrases with that, when I was in college, I didn't have any money. And I remember looking for coins under the couch and stuff and everything to go buy what little food I could to hold me for a week. But after that experience, I always said to myself, well, I haven't starved to death yet. You know?
I know. And then if you know the right people who can teach you things, like people that know about wild foods that are edible, you can go out and forage for them and subsist on that for a while, and
Yeah.
you can probably, you know, a little while earlier, I was thinking of something, and then we got to talking about something else, and it slipped my mind for a while, but now it's back. I remember coming across a couple of men having a conversation in a parking lot one time. They were comparing their stories with each other about their prostate cancers and like that, you know, and you know, I think it was situations where it wasn't too bad, so the doctors were just keeping an eye on it. They, you know, I guess they don't treat it unless it's really necessary, but they were talking about how long they figured they were going to live and everything, and I came along. Well, it just happened that a couple of years earlier, somebody who had spoken, an expert who had spoken at one of our Vegetarian Society dinners from the Coalition Against Cancer the Coalition for Cancer Prevention Through Nutrition. And I remember him, he had said something about 100% of all the men that get prostate cancer are men that eat meat and dairy products. Well, anyway, I started talking with these two men that were comparing stories with each other, and you know, and I was talking about a whole foods, plant-based diet and like that, and I remember saying something to them about if you eat a whole foods, plant-based diet and live an otherwise healthy lifestyle, I figure you can probably just live indefinitely, I said to them. The one man must have been super religious or something, you know. He goes, he got kind of mad at me and walked away. He goes, "You go when the good Lord is ready to take you." You know, that's what he said. It really made him mad that I said that. And, but the other guy sort of was agreeing with me, you know. But, you know, if you talk to any experts, you know, on nutrition and like that, about the plant-based nutrition, they'll tell you, well, God gives us the free will to take good care of ourselves. You know, I mean, it's a choice, you know. So,
yeah, we don't always win on that one, especially when it comes to food and things like that.
yeah, yeah, people don't really want, well, I've gotten off onto another entirely different subject here.
You know, I thought actually you were going to take that story and say you learned something about from their experiences, and then you met somebody else and you were like, oh, I was talking to these guys, and the information you learned you were going to share. But who's to say it wasn't synchronistic that you told him that, and maybe he changed his diet a little bit?
Yeah, could be. So, but it, you know, it was kind of interesting, the two different reactions from the two different people. So I do believe that, you know, if we take good care of ourselves, we can probably live to be over 100. I mean, you hear about people doing it all the time. My 4th grade teacher lived to be 106.
Wow.
So
that's impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In fact, I've seen a few newspaper articles over the past year about women that were over 100 getting the coronavirus and recovering from it.
Wow. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, life is weird, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
There's so many strange things happen in life, you know. And when you think about that, actually tying it back a little bit with the perfection of our path, and, you know, things happen, the synchronistic things, the odd things, and if we did shift our perspective and start to go, this is curious, and kind of explore a little bit, I think so many people kind of put up a wall right away. Like, oh, that's new, I don't want to talk about it. You know, I don't want to do that. No, I can't talk about that. You know, instead of going, let me just explore it a little bit and see what's there and see what life is all about. The whole point of living, you know, when you think about it, what is the point of living? Why are we even here? Why did we come to this physical life? I think it's to have as much fun as possible. And to have as much meaning in our lives as possible. Do as many fun things as you can. Have a good time. And that doesn't mean go crazy and do stupid stuff, you know?
Yeah, and even when you do have problems, you can learn to be happy in spite of it.
Yeah, it's a choice. Even with bad, horrible things, you can still, it doesn't have to ruin everything. I know, and not to dismiss the really traumatic things. You know, sometimes we have to survive through things first, but once we survive through it and processed it, integrated it a little bit, then we can get back, we can choose to be happy. I have never, ever had a spirit come in from the other side say to me, oh, you need to say sad to the person in front of me. Never. They've never come in and said, yes, I need them to be as sad as possible, never be happy again. I've never had anybody say that. It's all, I want you to have fun. I want you to go live your life. I want you to experience life. There's so much you can do and achieve and just have a good time here. I want you to do that. And people were like, no, but if I do that, that means I'm dismissing my grief and my missing of them, or that somehow minimizes how much I love somebody. I'm like, no, change that thought.
Yeah. I think it's okay to feel bad for a while, but don't do it forever. Yeah.
And you have to feel bad. I mean, you do have to have that sadness. If you don't, if you skip it, you're going to have bigger problems down the line. You have to feel the sadness. You have to allow it to come up. Sometimes we have to deny and ignore it because that's the only way we get through the day. Then there are other days we're brave enough and we can step into it and just blah, all over the place. You know, so we do have to feel, never skip your emotions.
Yeah.
But from that comes a lot of positive.
Yeah. I have had people, they quite often show up in my dreams, spirits, is quite often when they will do it. And it will be, because it'll always be somebody that I knew. For some reason, it doesn't seem to happen with strangers, but they will come to me and they will say that they want, you know, their family to know that they're okay. Maybe they've reconnected on the other side with loved ones who had gone before them, and they're so happy to be back together again.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, and spirit will come through in dreams because we're out of our way.
Well, yeah, because I read somewhere in a book that was written by another medium where she said that quite often they'll come to you in your dreams because they don't want to scare you by showing up while you're awake. You know?
Yeah, if this isn't normal, that definitely is going to flip you out.
Yeah. So anyways, it's pretty interesting. I read books that are written by mediums whenever I can get my hands on them. I'll have to get a copy of your book.
Yeah.
What's the name of it?
Well, actually, it's called Courageously You.
Courageously
And right
You.
now, the subtitle is Embrace Your Power and Reignite Your Joy. And it's basically, the whole thing is, I call them magical mind games, strategy shifts to shift your mind out of whatever perspective that's blocking you from your joy or making you feel powerless. You know, so the magical mind games throughout the book, so you can actually implement things to build your power back up and not let people bother you as much. If a problem happens and you're just, it's really hard for you to handle, there's something in there that tells you what to do to get out of your way and get back to you again. So it's hopefully the plan is for it to come out in September. Amazing! It's a miracle.
September. Well, it's going to have to be autographed, you know.
Oh, of course. You know? Yeah, it's looking really good. So I'm really happy about it. So.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Do you think you'll have a book signing at Lilydale?
Probably. And I've got a marketing person who's actually helping me now. One of my assistants is helping me with the marketing and kind of figuring out what we're going to be doing and how we're going to get it out there, you know, especially with COVID stuff still kind of lingering. But I do Zooms a lot, and I'm my Facebook Live for Lilydale Radio, you know, we're getting 1,800 views, you know, on every show now. So I've got a pretty good audience going there, so that's going to help. So it's going to be fun, I think.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it will be.
I'm really excited about it. So
I don't suppose there's anything in the book about your being engaged.
No, there is not. And if it was, my editor probably caught it anyway because she says I'm too repetitive.
I
Which
see.
I am. I taught public school for 30 years. What do you want? I have to be repetitive.
I hate to say it because this has been such a fun conversation, but we've come to the end of another episode of Fresh Perspectives. And I got my calendar with me, so I'll have to schedule you and your new man. And I'll see those of you in the viewing audience on the next episode.